Hey y'all, I'm back out here at the private Corvette collection, and last time I was out, the collection's overwhelming, as you could see the general walk around of it, and we did a few feature cars, but we just ran out of time. But one I wanted to come back and get, and I'm lucky enough to be able to get today, is a 2001 Yenko Corvette. Now, we had mentioned that Don had built that in the first video in passing, but in the end it was built as a tribute to Don. So we had our information straight on the car, and we're going to be able to give you a good interview on it. So let me get the camera turned around, and I'll run Sean down, and we'll take a look at this Corvette. Sean, how are you, brother?
Hey, good to see you again, Scotty. How you been?
Oh, great, man. It's just been, since the last time I've seen you, a lot's happened with the channel. And, of course, I always appreciate the access you give me. Because the video we did on the collection, the whole collection is doing well. You know, 14, 15, just under 20,000 views.
That's fantastic.
That is fantastic, because it's one of those things that, for whatever reason, I don't know that YouTube's really caught up to the Corvette generation yet. You know, you don't get the reaction you would think you would get. So, no, I was real impressed with that. And, of course, when I was here last time, we didn't have a time to shoot this car, but I told you I did want to come back and get it, and I appreciate you giving me time to do that today. Tell me a little bit about it.
And here you are.
Yeah.
Well, I could talk about it for a long time. I've done the history checking on it, but I think it'd be better if we brought in the guy that actually built the car.
Well, I ain't got all day now.
Oh,
I mean,
well,
where you
Bill,
got him
come
in
on
the
over.
closet? Hey, look, holy smokes. Bill Rea, how are you, brother?
All right, fine.
Good, good. Sean, I appreciate you stopping by today. I think I got it under control from here.
Okay.
Bill, tell me what we got going on here. Now, this was built as a tribute.
It was built as I called it a commemorative series. I guess you'd call it a tribute, yes. We were coming back from the SEMA show in 2000, and we had just drooled over quite a few cars out there. And I said to my wife at the time, I said the word Yenko. And she looked at me and she said, I think I understand. We got back to Clarion. I made a few contacts. Since Don was a good friend of mine, I figured if I'm going to do this, I want to do it right. So I contacted quite a few people that I used to know, including Donna Mae Mims, his right-hand girl Friday, Warren Dernishik, Don's crew chief and garage high-performance director, Chuck D'Annunzio, his engine man, Bob McClure, his best friend in the world, Dave Hines, one of his co-drivers, John Conley, who took over Don's estate after Don's death, made contact with Hopi Yenko, his ex-wife, that really was a friend of mine, or didn't have anything to say about it, but she was a good friend. Contacted Lynn and Terry, the two daughters, and decided we would go ahead with it. So they invited me down to the Steeltown Corvette Club, which was a club that Don established in the late 60s. And we needed their blessing, according to Donna Mae. So we finished this car in a little bit of a hurry, took it down there, 3 or 4 fellas drove it, loved it. Chip Ganassi was there. We sat at the same table with all the same folks I just mentioned. They basically took a vote. There were 90-some members, the biggest turnout they had had in years. They said, let's endorse this car, we love it. 2 of the fellas bought other vehicles from me, and we proceeded to refine this a little bit and made it prototype number 1. We decided to go a little different route rather than produce a bunch of clones and everyday cars that everybody else was making, calling them Yenkos. We wanted to do a commemorative series, so we called it Cars Designed by, Dedicated to our friend, the man and the myth, Don Yenko. So we never tried to make money of it. We actually made donations to 3 different charities in the name of Don and Hope, and produced 25 cars, this being number 1. So this was always one of our favorites.
Tell me what you did to this car. Tell me a little bit about the technical end of it.
It's a little bit of a one-off compared to what we did a little later on. This car, we didn't have an engine shop, so we actually farmed out the motor to Agostino Racing up in Toronto that had a very good rapport reputation with the LS1. So we sat at his desk quite a few times, went over the motor, came up with about 475 to 500 horsepower, competition cam, racing head service heads, and several internals. We bored the engine, and I think it developed 480 horses, I remember. It's been 12 years, so
sure.
I believe it's around 480.
Now, is that at the wheels or at the crank?
That's at the crank.
Okay.
Yeah, later on we developed more on some of our other ones, but John Hodgkiss, who was a friend of ours back then, came out with a plan for the suspension. We did the shocks, the springs, we lowered it about an inch, and I think as they can attest, it handles pretty well.
Well, they drive them around here, I can tell you that.
I've heard, yeah.
I can attest to the fact they do drive them.
We've actually had the car road tested. It was back then, we 0 to 60 in 4.3 seconds. We ran the quarter mile, I believe, in 12:33 with, these might even be the original tires, but with street tires. And
What mile an hour do you remember?
I believe it was 109, I believe.
Now, and again, you got to remember the time in which this is all happening.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Because there's going to be some young whippersnappers out there that say, well, what about a ZR1 or whatever? Well, yeah, what about it, right? I mean, we didn't have race cars on the street back in
It was pretty much
01.
of a dead era.
Right.
When we decided to do these, the General Motors and Ford, everybody decided to take a break. I mean, there wasn't a lot of horsepower.
Right.
And so we wanted to jump in and build something that we could be proud of, that basically what Don would build if he were alive. If he were still with us, he would do this. So that's where we got our ideas, and we built 25 cars, this being the only C5 Corvette in the group.
I gotcha. It's a cool car. Is it a custom color?
It's actually, we darkened the original blue with a little bit of black and gray. We used Buick Riviera silver on the trim. And basically I designed Bobby Wiles, the painter, and I designed
That's not vinyl, that's paint. Right?
That is paint. Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
I don't believe in vinyl.
No, I didn't think so. And then, did you have a specially made gear shift knob?
That is a NASCAR 50-year anniversary gear shift. I bought 20 of those, so they're on 20 of the 25 vehicles we built.
Man, it's a cool car. And the wheel size and all you kept the same?
We used HRE wheels. They are the same, I believe. I think they're 18 inches, I recall.
Open that hood, Sean, you mind? Well, it's a very cool car, but I know at this point in this video, I've got a bunch of old-time drag racers out there saying, okay, great, Scott, it's a pretty car. Tell us what Don Yenko was really like. And I know you are a personal friend of his, right? Tell me a little bit about your history with Don and what you'd like the general public just, not like you said, he's a myth. The cars are myths, you know, and we're losing the people that were actually around at the time all this was happening. So you're getting stories that are 2 and 3 generations old, and they're kind of changing a little bit. So tell me a little, what was Don like, really?
As a race car driver, Don was a very good piano player.
And as a piano player, he's a very good race car driver.
Right. No, Don could drive a race car. We raced against each other at least 4 times. We raced together a couple times. We were to drive Le Mans in 1971 when Don went out and broke his leg on a trail bike 2 weeks before we were to go. So he was very interesting. He was, without degrading him at all, because I love Don. Don was a little bit of an egomaniac. Everything was centered around him, but all around good guy. He would bend over backward for you. He had a typical father-son relationship like I did. Always a little conflict. His dad thought he spent too much money on racing and running around.
Now, because it wasn't his Chevrolet dealership.
It was actually Frank and Marty, his mother. They had the majority stock, if not about 75% of it. Don was a minority partner, and that led to him forming Yenko Sports Cars, which was a little sub-corporation on the side, and that's where the Yenko Camaros come in.
And that's another misnomer, is that the Yenko Camaros technically didn't come from Yenko Chevrolet. They came from Yenko Sports Cars.
That's right. The window sticker said Yenko Chevrolet because it was really the bookwork was what was on the side. He would sit down at his desk with you and spec out a car. And some of them he usually kept 3 or 4 in stock. Others he would order in. They didn't put the motors in the cars actually till late 68, early 69, other than a couple prototypes. And luckily, what started it all, Ed Cole was the high muckety-muck with General Motors at the time, and Ed and Don were close friends. Ed was Pennsylvanian also. And so they kind of backdoored the deal like John DeLorean did a little later on.
Right.
And so they had the right ins, and with Don winning a few races like Sebring and Daytona in the 61, 62.
What do you win those races in?
He won B production. Those Corvettes are very famous for Gulf Gulf Research and
Oh, okay.
Gulf Oil, and BP. He won Sebring, Daytona, Watkins Glen, several races. He won over 30 major
Well,
races.
you think, I don't know why, I guess because I'm 47 years old and I wasn't around, but I think Don Yenko, I think drag racing. But he was a road racing guy. Or was he just a racer?
He loved to race.
You said at one point he raced mules or something.
No, that was my dad. He was very competitive, to say the least. And I don't even like to sound like I'm bragging, but he was a bad sport, like I am.
Right.
Good losers are losers, Woody Hayes said.
Right.
And Don and I drag raced one time. We hit one of his Camaros and I had a 66 Mustang that was rather quick. And we went to Pittsburgh International Drag Strip on a Saturday. And we raced, even though we were in different classes, we raced heads up twice. I beat him both times. He was mad. And we then, a few weeks later, I took my Mustang and he had a Corvette of his. We went to Beaver Run Racetrack and we raced a road course, more or less of a fancy autocross. And just so happens the Mustang was a little quicker than the Corvette was. And he got mad again. He kind of pouted. And
Were y'all friends at this time?
Oh, we were good friends.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's when we started talking about going to Le Mans later on. And he said, "You really ought to drive with us." He said, "Bob McClure's a good guy." And he said, "We'd be a heck of a team." And he said, "Let me pass this by Gorton Seafood." So it was Gorton Seafood, Valvoline Oil, and BF Goodrich Tires were sponsoring this Porsche. And they wanted Don and two co-drivers to go drive the 24 hours. So that was when he broke his leg. That was going to happen, but it never did. But
Well, thank goodness. Because the last thing American muscle cars need is Don Yenko driving Porsches, right? I mean,
This is true.
Yeah, no, I hate to say it, that was maybe a good thing, but whatever kept him from climbing into a Porsche, I support it.
I guess so. Yes, he was. Of course, we had some great times besides racing too. I mean, he was so competitive. We were at Hope and my wife and Dawn and I went to Lake George, New York one time, and we're out on a boat, an old Chris Craft, cruising down the lake. Big thunderstorm comes up. Dawn was driving the boat, and he says, be like Captain Courageous. He basically, "I'll save us, don't worry about a thing." Hope and Yvonne and I were in the back on the floor of the boat. Dawn was up there and these waves coming over this rough lake, and we just about died laughing. I mean, it just cracked up, and Dawn is being superhero, and he's just catching every wave right in the face, and it was just
He was competing against nature, even anything. He was going to battle Mother Nature that day.
He did that.
Man, it sounds like y'all had a lot of fun.
Oh, we had gobs of fun. I mean, he was a great pilot until he got killed in a plane wreck, ironically. And
But that wasn't like a crazy plane crash. Didn't you say the plane had already landed?
the plane had landed, and like most attorneys do, I think his attorney hit the wrong pedal, turned left and down over a bank, killed them both.
That's just crazy.
Don was a great pilot.
Right. How old was he?
Oh boy, I think he was in his late 50s, 1987, 30s, probably 56, 57 years old, I'm guessing, without figuring it out.
And he was still going strong.
Oh yeah, very much.
Yeah, we could have expected a lot more from Yenko.
He was still. I always said he was 60, looked like 50, and acted like he was 30. Because
Right.
we about 2 years before that, he had come to the World Trade Center with me in Dallas, Texas, and he ordered a bedroom suit. And I was telling Sean, I said, this bedroom suit was total fur. It was alpaca. The headboard was alpaca. The bedspread weighed about 20 pounds of alpaca. The television rose up out of the footboard.
He's a playboy.
Lights on each side, looked like Playboy. And Hope was so conservative and demure, it was unreal. She just kind of looked down like this and said, "Whatever Dawn wants."
Oh, man.
Anyway, that was just some of the good times. We really were great friends. It started out because he had relatives in my hometown, is how I met him. And I went down to order an L88 motor, which I wish I still had. And so we had a lot of dealings from there on. We raced together, we traveled together, we boated together, we did most everything.
Very cool.
He got word I was in Texas, and I was building my Wildfire cars at the time, and I got word that Don had died. So that was kind of the end of an era, and that's why we wanted to do a little bit of a tribute. So.
And man, I can't tell you how honored I am to be able to speak to you and get to be able to record this tribute, you know what I'm
Well,
saying? To let people know the history behind this car. And like I said, being 47, my dad grew up in the 60s, and so I heard all the stories. But to be able to, those are just stories to him, you know what I'm saying? He never knew Don, he never got to talk to him, he just saw what the press put out. And for the most part, even back then, the media would put things out the way they wanted to him, not necessarily the way it was.
They still do.
That's right.
I laugh every now and then when I read a Yenko article or listen to the guys on TV, but
What do you think? What do you think one of the big misconceptions about Don Yenko was?
well, first, I think they thought he was a mogul back then. I mean, Don made $50 to $100 per car. That's all he did. He'd lay out a Yenko car, tack $100 on the bottom of the sticker, or $50 on the bottom. Had no idea they were going to be. They were just a hot rod. He did like I did. He ruined cars when they come in, made them fast.
All right.
And it just turned out right. He was one of few. He was in on the ground floor, and it just ran from there.
He did well for himself, but the Yenkos didn't make him rich, I guess is the point of
Oh
that.
yeah, Don was not actually.
The cars
very-
isn't what made his
No,
money, because he
no.
was barely getting by on those. I guess he's just putting them out to help hot rodders, and you know, I guess the old man wouldn't let him do something for free, so he had to tack 50 or 100 bucks on it, right?
All you had to do is look at the dealership.
Right.
It didn't amount to that much. And
Now you got a picture. Is this a picture of Yenko Chevrolet?
that is now a famous print. A fellow named Dave Snyder specializes in automotive art, and that is called Don's Place. And even that picture is worth in the high three figures these days. That shows the actual Yenko dealership at 575 Pike Street in Canonsburg, Pennsylvania. That upper window on the right was Donna Mae Mims's office, and the third window back on the left was Don's office. And a set of stairs right below that, and not fancy at all.
But here's the thing about that picture is got nothing but Yenko cars sitting all over it, and it's my understanding that if he put a Yenko car on the showroom, his dad told him to get that crap out of there and put something else in his
He
place.
was not allowed to have more than one or two in the area.
Right.
He did the Chevelle. He did 657 cars over the 3-year period, and most of them were out the back door. If you looked at that picture out the far left to the rear was a garage where they Terry and Lynn and a few other people put stickers on them on Saturday mornings, put the decals on them, and that's fairly true. You hear that a lot, but there were other people doing those cars also.
Right.
Most of the high performance work was done off to the left. A real good engine man named Chuck D'Annunzio and his chief mechanic Warren Dernishek. They still have all the records. They knew every car out the door.
No kidding.
And
So if you wanted to, it's possible to, I guess they got the VIN numbers, so you can tell if that was really a Yenko car at one point or
most
not.
of the VIN number. There is a Yenko registry out there that does a decent job, but Warren Dernishek is the kind of the keeper of the books.
Right.
John Conley, Don's executor, had some good record keeping, but Warren is the one that just kind of put it all aside and kept it all these years.
Cool.
So
What if somebody wanted a Yenko car like this? Could they still get with you and get one?
the commemorative series, I kind of put a limit of 25. I didn't want to kind of, I don't know, prostitute the industry. I didn't
Dilute it.
want to overload
Yeah,
it. Dilute
no,
it.
I understand.
And we build it as, like I said, inspired by, dedicated to. Now, I still have my customers that I built wildfires for. I built 337 over 5 years. And if someone wants a car of this character, we still do them. I've got a
Right.
good staff that can still put the car together, yes.
And I think that would, but even if you don't get one that's got Yenko decals on it that's part of this series,
Right.
it's still cool to be able to bring a car to you if you're a big Yenko fan and say, make me something that you think Don would approve of, something
We've
he
done
would
that.
smile. And you know how he was as a person and what kind of things he would like and what kind of things he wouldn't like.
Right.
And so you'd still get a car that, I mean, nobody can get one that has his actual touch on it anymore, but still one that's got a little bit of his spirit in, I guess, that, you know.
Well,
Because
we'd
y'all
like to
were
think
racing
so.
together and everything. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
that means you were spending days and days and days together.
I made probably 200 trips down before Interstate 79 was there. The old back roads down through Katanning, down into Carnegie and across the railroad track just to get to the place.
No kidding.
That was the old days.
Wow.
And like I say, we had a lot of fun. He was a very good guy, and he had some good friends. Delmo Johnson, this crazy guy, people have heard of Delmo, but he was a Chevy dealer in Dallas, Texas. And we visited him down in Texas one time, wanted to go to the races at Texas World Speedway, where we drove in a celebrity race down there, and that was fun with Bobby Allison, Tiny Lund, Dawn,
Yeah.
and Delmo. So it's been a good time. I wish Don was still with us, and we just lost Don in May about 2 years ago, which is a shame. There's about 3 of us left, as far as I know. I think Warren is still living, myself, and I believe Dave Hines, one of his other co-drivers, I think is still alive.
Well, obviously you're taking care of yourself because you look in good shape. I don't know how old you are.
I'm only 100, so
yeah, that's what I was getting ready to say. For all the stories you're telling me, I was adding in my head. I figured he's 112. He don't look a day over 60. You know.
I'm the one that says I'm 70, look 60, and feel 50. Hopefully.
Right.
Yeah.
Man. Well,
anyway, that's the story. But it's you don't have to remember what you said if you tell the truth. So that's all I can do.
That's it. That's what I live by. I'm not smart enough to remember lies. You know. Well, Bill, I'll tell you what. That's a cool car. And Sean, you know how much I appreciate y'all bringing me in to let me shoot the car, but then to bring Bill Rea in, it just amazes me every time I come here that what's possible. Not necessarily to this museum, but just in this area. There's just car guys are crazy here, man. Yeah. They're all wild about cars, you know.
It's funny. You go to California, you go to Texas, you go to Florida, you go to New York. They don't give a darn. No, Indiana's nothing, but Indiana is a hotbed.
I know. Well, I live in Knoxville, Tennessee now. Yeah. So in the South now, hey, we got rod runs all the time. We got hot rods in every corner too. And so when somebody tells me, hey, John tells me, hey, we got a pretty good, strong culture up here in Indiana. You got to come check it out. Nah, they do. Yeah, they got nice cars. They got drivers. They got everything. Man, Bill, I can't tell you how much I appreciate, because I don't guess you live in Indiana.
No, I commute between Pennsylvania and Texas.
Well, I'm glad you stopped in.
Indiana's en route.
I appreciate you stopping in today to give me this interview. I can't tell you how much I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Sean, thanks so much.
Good to see you again.
Please pass the thanks on to the owner of this collection for me too.
Will.
So, folks, there you go. Very special video to shoot today. Just because, you know, my passion for the American muscle car and the name, what Yenko means to that genre of cars, or, you know, to the history of that, and to be able to actually come in, not only shoot a memorial car, to talk to one of his close friends, get a little history on him, see what he was like back in the day. Like I said, most days I have to pinch myself to make sure I'm really alive. Hope you all have enjoyed it. See ya.